He bought her a kingdom of gold, but the mirror revealed his scales. When Adanna saw her billionaire husband's true reflection, she had to choose everlasting wealth or saving her village from the serpent's final, silent price. Let me take you to where it all began. The dry season had stretched its bony fingers across Olorun village for far too long, baking the earth until it cracked like an old man's heel. Yet it was not the parched fields that consumed the villagers' gossip, but the stranger who had appeared by the riverbank as if born of the water itself. His name was Kwesi, a man of striking features and eyes that held the depth of the ocean, yet his presence was as fleeting as mist. He possessed an otherworldly charm, effortlessly drawing the gaze of every maiden, but it was young Adanna, known for her vibrant spirit and dreams as vast as the savannah, who truly captured his attention. Kwesi's arrival brought an unsettling stillness to the usually boisterous village evenings, a quiet anticipation that settled like dust. The elders, with their knowing glances, merely shook their heads, for they sensed a story beginning, one whispered on the wind long before Kwesi ever set foot on their soil. What secrets did the river carry with this mysterious man? A single, unnervingly perfect cowrie shell appeared on Adanna's doorstep the morning after Kwesi's arrival, glowing with an unnatural golden sheen. Adanna, unlike the other girls who merely admired Kwesi from afar, felt a fierce magnetic pull towards him, a feeling that defied the cautious warnings of her best friend, Bisi. Kwesi did not speak of his lineage, nor the source of the abundant wealth he suddenly displayed. He paid for goods using only flawless, ancient golden cowries, coins unseen in Olorun for generations. The village chief, whose coffers had been emptied by the drought, quickly dismissed all concerns, basking in the sudden prosperity Kwesi's spending brought. "Where is your home, stranger?" Adanna finally asked him by the village well, her voice trembling slightly. Kwesi smiled, a slow, mesmerizing curve of his lips. "My home," he replied, his voice like the rushing river, "is wherever you are, Adanna. But tonight I have a gift far greater than cowries." He turned and walked away, leaving Adanna clutching the single golden shell, her heart pounding a rhythm she did not recognize. But as the sun dipped, painting the sky in fiery hues, the shadow of a colossal, unseen thing stretched across the dust path behind her. Was the gift truly meant for her, or for the entire village?
The grand feast Kwesi sponsored that evening was unlike anything Olorun had ever witnessed. Tables groaned under platters of roasted meats and sweet palm wine flowed freely. While the villagers celebrated their sudden change of fortune, Adanna felt increasingly isolated, pulled into the orbit of Kwesi's intense gaze. Under the shimmering glow of lanterns, Kwesi danced with her, his movements fluid and hypnotic. Yet when she finally leaned in to feel the warmth of his embrace, she was met with a shocking, bone-deep coldness. "You are so cold, Kwesi," she whispered, pulling back slightly, a flicker of fear passing through her excitement. Kwesi's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, his eyes darkening like the surface of a shadowed pool. "The night air, Adanna," he dismissed softly, his fingers tightening around hers. "It chills even the strongest heart." He distracted her with a promise of a life beyond the village, a future paved with gold. But as he spoke, Bisi, watching from the edge of the crowd, noticed a subtle detail. Where Kwesi's expensive sandals touched the dusty ground, the earth seemed to remain unsettlingly damp, as if perpetually kissed by water. The festive music could not quite drown out the growing unease in Bisi's heart. What did that coldness truly signify? Bisi, known for her sharp intuition and cautious nature, could not shake the image of the wet footprints and Kwesi's chilling touch. The next day, She found Adanna weaving a magnificent tapestry, a gift Kwesi had somehow procured overnight, threads spun from pure silver. "Adanna, listen to me," Bisi pleaded, her voice low and urgent. "Something is wrong. This wealth, this sudden presence, it is unnatural. Where does he come from? Why does he never eat the food we offer?" Adanna laughed, a light, careless sound. "You are simply jealous, Bisi. Kwesi is a good man, a man who sees my worth. He says he travels far and fast for his business." She gestured to the silver threads. "He is building me a new life. Why cling to these dusty old worries?" Bisi felt a painful rift opening between them. She knew the ancient stories whispered around village fires, tales of water spirits and creatures that took human form, demanding an unimaginable price for their gifts. "Just promise me one thing," Bisi insisted, gripping Adanna's arm. "Look closely. Look for any sign that the mask is slipping." Adanna nodded dismissively, her eyes fixed only on the shimmering threads. As Bisi turned away, she saw a faint, almost imperceptible sheen on Kwesi's hair, like river algae clinging to rock. The veil of deception was thin, but would Adanna see it before it was too late? The proposal did not come on bent knee, but as a command delivered under the shadow of the village's oldest, most sacred baobab tree. Kwesi's voice, though soft, held an unyielding authority that startled Adanna. "We marry at the next full moon, Adanna," he stated, presenting her with a wedding cloth woven from iridescent, never-fading silk. "There will be no long courtship. Time is a luxury we cannot afford." Adanna's heart swelled with the thrill of being chosen, but a small, persistent voice of caution whispered in her mind, fed by Bisi's warnings. "Why the hurry, Kwesi? Shouldn't our families meet? I know nothing of your people." Kwesi's eyes hardened momentarily, a brief, chilling flash of something reptilian. "My family is gone, scattered by fate. We need no elders to approve what destiny has already decreed." He then produced a magnificent silver anklet, shaped like a serpent, its eyes set with tiny, glittering emeralds. "Wear this, Adanna. It binds our spirits." The sheer beauty of the anklet obliterated her remaining doubts. She slipped it onto her ankle, the cold silver instantly warming against her skin. But as she did, a tremor ran through the great baobab tree, shedding a handful of brittle, dead leaves onto the ground, a silent protest against the pact being sealed beneath its ancient branches. Did the binding anklet offer protection, or was it a chain? The wedding day arrived amidst a whirlwind of exotic silks, imported spices, and music that echoed the pulsating rhythm of an unknown land. Kwesi had bought the village, showering everyone with gifts, ensuring their loyalty outweighed their curiosity. Yet, as the ceremony commenced by the newly formed, miraculously flowing spring near the river, the absence of his kin was impossible to ignore. Not a single relative, friend, or acquaintance stood on Kwesi's side. Adanna's mother, though blinded by the sheer luxury, finally voiced a timid concern to her husband. "Even the richest man must have a cousin. Who are we truly giving our daughter to?" Kwesi overheard the whisper, his perfect posture unmoving. He turned to the crowd, his smile wide but utterly devoid of warmth. "My family," he announced, his voice carrying clearly over the music, "lives far beneath the earth and across the wide seas. They send their blessings through my fortune." The crowd, easily mollified by the sight of the shimmering gifts, cheered. But as the couple exchanged vows, an unseen gust of wind extinguished every single ceremonial candle simultaneously. plunging the sacred circle into momentary darkness. Only Kwesi seemed unaffected, his eyes still shining brightly in the sudden gloom. Was this a bad omen, or a silent display of Kwesi's hidden power?
Their matrimonial home was not a traditional hut, but a magnificent, strangely cool villa Kwesi had conjured overnight, carved from smooth, gray river stones. Adanna found herself living a life of unimaginable comfort, surrounded by luxuries that felt foreign to the simple rhythms of a Lorun. Yet the marriage quickly settled into a chilling routine. Kwesi was the perfect, generous husband during the day, lavishing her with attention and gold. But as soon as the sun dipped beneath the horizon and the first shadows stretched long across the stone floor, Kwesi would claim he had pressing, mysterious business. "I must attend to my commerce in the far city tonight," he would state calmly, pulling on a strange high-collared coat. "I shall return before the rooster crows." Adanna, mesmerized by the life he provided, accepted his explanation without question, ignoring the fact that the nearest city was a week's journey by foot. She convinced herself his success required great sacrifice. One night, however, as she watched him disappear through the heavily carved mahogany door, she noticed something she had never seen before. A thin, glassy residue glistening on the floorboards where he had stood, quickly drying to nothing. It was the scent of stagnant water and earth. Where did he truly go when the darkness fell?
That night, consumed by a restless curiosity, Adanna decided she could no longer accept her husband's nightly vanishing acts. She waited until the moon was high and the house was silent, then crept out of their stone villa, determined to follow Kwesi's trail. But the moment she opened the heavy door, the path vanished into an impenetrable, cold mist that clung stubbornly to the compound walls. She could neither see nor hear anything beyond the gate. Frustrated, Adanna retreated to their luxurious bedroom. She approached the enormous carved bed where she slept alone every night and pulled back the silk covers. The linen was perfectly undisturbed, crisp and unwrinkled, exactly as she had left it. But beneath the thick mattress, she felt an unsettling chill. Pressing her hand firmly down, she realized the woven mat under the mattress was not dry, it was damp, saturated with the cold moisture that carried the distinct metallic smell of river silt. Kwesi had not traveled to the far city, for the evidence of his true destination was right there, in the very core of their bed. If he wasn't sleeping there, where was the man of water spending his nights?
The dampness of the mat chilled Adanna more deeply than the cold stone walls of the villa. She spent the next day jumpy and distracted, watching Kwesi as he moved through the house with his usual serene elegance. That evening, as he prepared to leave for his business, Adanna was doing her hair in front of the ornate, silver-framed mirror Kwesi had gifted her. "My love, you look troubled," Kwesi murmured, leaning over her shoulder, his face perfectly reflected next to hers. She gripped the handle of her wooden comb, suddenly paralyzed by a terrifying revelation. She looked into the mirror at Kwesi's perfect reflection, his elegant suit, his striking eyes, his faint smile. But then, reflected in the very edge of the mirror's frame, she saw it, a subtle distortion. Where his shadow should have fallen on the polished floor behind him, there was instead the faint, shimmering coil of a colossal, golden-scaled serpent. Adanna gasped, dropping the comb with a clatter. When she whipped around, Kwesi stood there, perfectly human, his expression unreadable. "What did you see, Adanna?" he asked, his voice now dangerously smooth. Was the mirror showing her a truth too terrifying to comprehend?
Adanna's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She knew she had seen the serpent, but the normalcy of Kwesi's appearance now made her doubt her own sanity. She forced a shaky smile. "Nothing, my love. Just the reflection of the candlelight caught my eye." Kwesi did not smile back. For the first time, his gaze was unnervingly fixed, his eyes wide and perfectly still. He was looking through her, not at her. She realized with a sickening jolt that he had not blinked since she dropped the comb. His unblinking stare held the predatory stillness of something waiting to strike. "You must rest, Adanna," he commanded softly, the warmth completely absent from his voice. "Do not let shadows trick your vision." He turned abruptly and walked to the door, pulling his high collar tighter around his neck. As the door clicked shut, Adanna rushed to the nearest window. She watched Kwesi stride rapidly toward the river. Just before he reached the dense foliage, his form seemed to blur, elongating and dissolving into the night mist in impossible speed. He did not walk into the forest, he melted into it. The chilling reality now settled. Her husband was not a man, but a powerful entity tied to the river. What happened to him when he completed his nightly transformation?
The revelation fueled Adanna with a desperate courage. She knew she needed help, and the only person who had ever seen the danger was Bisi. Risking everything, Adanna sneaked out of the villa before dawn, running back to the dusty village she had so quickly abandoned. She found Bisi at her hearth, still preparing the morning meal, and poured out the terrifying truth, the coldness, the river smell, and the monstrous reflection in the mirror. Bisi listened, her face grim, confirming Adanna's deepest fears. "I knew it. The elders speak of the Naga, powerful river spirits that crave human warmth and energy, taking mortal form to secure a companion." Bisi revealed that since Kwesi's arrival, the village had prospered, but at a hidden cost. The children were becoming strangely lethargic, the pregnant mothers were frail, and the elderly were fading faster than usual. "He takes Adanna," Bisi whispered, clutching her friend's hand. "He gives gold, but he takes life force." They realized Kwesi had used the wedding and the ongoing gifts as a ritual to bind the entire village's vitality to his fortune. How could they break a bond that was rooted in greed and sealed by a golden snake ankling?
Bisi remembered the ancient lore her grandmother used to tell, that river spirits, though powerful, are bound by the elements they command. Their strength lies in the shadows and the wet earth, but they are vulnerable to the purest light and the destructive heat of fire. "The silver anklet," Bisi declared, pointing to the serpent charm on Adanna's ankle. "It is the source of the binding spell. If you remove it, the bond breaks, but it must be done at the moment of his greatest weakness." They realized the crucial time was just before Kwesi's nightly transformation, when he was neither fully man nor spirit. Adanna had to lure him to a specific place, the chief's abandoned shrine on the highest hill, far from the river and bathed in the fierce morning sun. The sunlight, Bisi explained, was considered purifying fire to the Naga. "You must remove the anklet on the hill, just as the sun touches its peak," Bisi instructed, her eyes wide with fear. "If he transforms before you remove it, his fury will consume you, and the village will pay the final price." Could Adanna risk everything on an ancient myth?
Adanna returned to the villa that night, not as a wife, but as a hunter setting a trap. She moved through the cold, silent rooms, placing dried cassava leaves, known to ward off river creatures, at the doorways, a desperate act of spiritual defense. She acted normally, sharing a tense, emotionless meal with Kwesi. As the moon rose, Kwesi announced his departure, pulling on his coat. "I will accompany you tonight," Adanna said, her voice steady despite the terror gripping her.
I wish to see the wonders you speak of." Kwesi froze. His eyes narrowed, but the charm quickly returned. "No, my dear, the work is not for your delicate eyes." He tried to dismiss her, but Adanna stood firm. Knowing he could not risk exposure, he eventually acquiesced, his smile turning brittle. "Very well, but you must not speak nor look back." He led her not toward the road, but directly to the riverbank. As they reached the water's edge, Kwesi stopped and turned. The handsome face she married twisted and distorted, scales erupted from his skin, and the human legs merged into a massive, glistening. Seeing the magnificent, terrifying beast that was her husband, Adanna suppressed a scream, fueled only by the grim resolve to save her village. The massive serpent, Kwesi, slid forward, motioning for her to follow. He slithered not into the water, but onto the land, his powerful coils propelling him toward the great baobab tree. "You wished to see my world, Adanna?" A voice ancient and echoing hissed in her mind. "Now you are bound to it forever." Adanna knew she couldn't let him reach the darkness of the tree where his power was absolute. She turned and ran, sprinting away from the river toward the distant barren hill. The monstrous python hissed in fury, its golden scales catching the faint moonlight as it changed direction, pursuing her relentlessly. She felt the heavy thump of its body hitting the ground behind her, gaining rapidly. With every desperate stride, the silver serpent anklet on her leg felt icy and impossibly heavy, an anchor slowing her down. She stumbled, fell, and scrambled back up, fixing her eyes on the summit of the hill. She could see the first pale light of the dawn painting the eastern sky, but would the sun rise quickly enough to save her? Gasping for air, Adanna reached the peak of the hill just as the great golden orb of the sun crested the horizon, bathing the shrine in brilliant, purifying light. The colossal python hesitated, shrinking back from the searing brightness, its golden scales dulling instantly. This was the moment of his weakness. Adanna, her hands shaking, fumbled with the clasp of the silver serpent anklet. Kwesi, the serpent, saw her intent. He let out a shriek that rattled the stones. "No, without that bond our fortune vanishes. You doom yourself to poverty," he roared in her mind. Adanna paused, staring down at the priceless silver and the looming threat of destitution. But then she remembered Bisi's frail mother and the tired children. With a powerful tug, she tore the anklet free and flung it into the sunlight. As the silver hit the dry earth, it instantly evaporated with a sound like rushing water. Simultaneously, a sharp collective gasp echoed from the village below. Kwesi's form shivered violently. His scales cracked, his massive body dissolving not into mist, but into a stream of pure, clean river water that flowed back down the hill. Adanna watched the water vanish, her luxurious silk dress turning to simple cotton. The gold was gone, but the air suddenly felt lighter, filled with a revitalizing energy. Adanna returned to the village, poor but free, teaching her people that true prosperity is not measured in golden cowries, but in the vitality and freedom of the spirit.
Every story hides a lesson, sometimes love, sometimes pain, but always truth. Subscribe to African Kingdom Folktales for more African tales that touch the soul.